Alrighty, good morning, good morning. Ah, getting all set up. I'm going to change up films here, I think. Let's see. It's funny how you collect these, I'll set up these screenshots and then like a lot of them are the same or have similar ones. It's like they're reasserting their collections in different ways. Alright. Good morning. Oh, look who you are down there. I saw YouTube the other day where the guy was talking about Superman Unchained. I guess there was it's by Jim Lee and Scott Snyder, but I guess there was an artist or director's cut. It's basically a pencils version of the comic. And so it made me wonder. I went on eBay and there was a copy, the finished comic as a pairing of the finished comic and the pencil version for like $12. And so what I found on eBay is like 90% of the time, if I put something on a watch list, I'll usually get like an automated notification within a few hours that says, "Hey, do you want X number of bucks off of this?" Like 10% or 20% or whatever. So they dropped it from 12 to 9. Plus, I think 5 or 6 for shipping. So, went ahead and grabbed that. Just so you can get like the entire run. Some guy is selling the entire run of Ash from what's his face? Back when he was still illustrating for like $24 on eBay. I don't know the condition, but if you just look at the read it, I think I've got the first issue of that somewhere. So yeah, that looks like really. The guy was flipping through it. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. So I was like, I get that. And I don't really care about it as like a collector's thing, just as a see how he works kind of thing. Wish we had that for. Well, I guess there's those artist editions you can get on those large ones like Batman Year One. I think there's one for like Jim Lee, X-Men or something like that. But then last night I was making some storyboards for myself for my color comic project. So I put these together yesterday. I've got this brown paper. They said they're note cards. They're a little thin. They're basically the same thickness as this paper. And then I did one on like a regular note card just to see what it would look like. Yeah, he's got a good YouTube channel. He has a nice way of kind of explaining what he's doing and how things work. He does all traditional lettering, which is nice. Yeah. He does like a nice, like slow, methodical way of doing it, which is kind of nice to. Let's see. We're gonna go with Fight Club here. Um, yeah, but like yeah, I saw like his lettering guide stuff was really helpful for me. Oh, that sneeze. Oh, excuse me. Ouch. Yeah, sometimes I hate the internet, and then other times I'm like, oh, well, like to find something like that, you'd have to hope your local comic shop would have, you know, had that available and reasonably priced. But maybe maybe if I were to go to my local one, I might find it in the back for like a dollar or something like that too. But um, so. Oh, move this down a little bit. There we go. But yeah, so much good stuff out there. I've been looking up information on pitches, so I'm trying to organize this project I've been working on into a pitch, so I kind of see what I really need for putting it out there. Um, some thoughts on how to present it, but also looking at what's required. Like Image has like their pitch requirements on their page. I don't know if I'll be able to get in with them, but figured that'd be a good one to start with. Yeah, well, yeah, I think the thing with them is I think you just have to, like, they really just take, if they think that they can publish it and get their money back on it, that they, the publishing, processing, distributing, all of that, like, if they can get that back, then that's all they really care about, because all the production of the actual work happens on your end. And so their own, they've got a whole pipeline already set up for getting things printed and all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I think it'd be. I think it's possible as long as I've got like a solidly written out pitch with characters that look cool, and you know, that the sample pages are really strong. Um, and so if I can focus on that, that's why I was looking at putting together a pitch doc right away. So I started throwing together one, a pitch doc, based off what I already have and know, just to see what it looks like. Yeah, probably it might make something, but I wouldn't know what's in it, right? Um, I'm using Affinity Publisher. It's like Adobe InDesign, so it's for like book layout. I picked up the Affinity suite a little while ago. It's a one-time purchase, and it's basically as a group, it's like Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. And it's kind of interesting because they so like Adobe's famous for their Creative Cloud, but so you can work on something over in Photoshop and it'll update over in InDesign or Illustrator, and all back and forth, and kind of update automatically, which is really nice. I think that was one of their better innovations. I don't know that they needed the cloud stuff to necessarily do that, but they had that. But with Affinity, what happens is you can actually, it's within the same app, I can kind of switch modes where I can be working, say, in the publishing app, in Publisher, and then I can click on the image or select the image, and then there's a icon at the top, and for the three different apps, and I can just literally switch to the other apps tools within the one I have open already. So I don't even need to go to a separate app. It just kind of switches the tool set out. So I can go in there. So like I had that rough photo I took, and this is like just as a placeholder for the pitch. But I inked this up the other day, and I just threw that in there. But I wanted to get rid of the red lines on the publishing apps because I had just dropped it in the publisher to have it as a placeholder. And so all I had to do was click on the image, and then I was able to open up the Affinity tools for the photo app and drop in the black and white filter to get rid of all the red stuff. And, it was really nice. It was just like very convenient. Because if I were doing that in Adobe and I was working in InDesign, I would have to open Photoshop in order to go edit the image, and hopefully it would properly get over there. Let's see, there's a person. It's interesting kind of what a simple image can be, even more complex than you might think. But I thought that it's kind of an interesting functionality of the Affinity applications. Or if I had like a logo that was done with vectors, you just switch to their vector app really easily. So yeah, so I was kind of tossing that together. Got a lot of forehead up there, but it's that much forehead. Yeah, I think it's like $170 for the entire suite. They had it actually last summer for a lot cheaper. So Adobe had done some shot themselves in the balls over something. They're in some big trouble right now. It's pretty obvious. I was talking to somebody who knows people that work there, and they're not even allowed to like talk about the harm that integrating AI into their programs has caused the company. Like, can't even bring it up in meetings because they've lost, I think, 70% of their market value in the last year. They are down a lot. And you can see there's been like a bigger advertising push from them lately. So that could be my fault because I've been leaving snarky comments in their ads on Facebook. So much so that I'm like a top fan now, which is kind of funny. Sometimes I'll post sometimes I'll see when I'll go grab a screenshot of the Adobe stock value and just drop it in there. So how's it going, Adobe? They're going to keep throwing ads in front of me. I'm going to keep making fun of them. But it's like, it doesn't even make any sense what they're doing. Like, there's all these things that they're saying AI is going to do for their customer base. There's plenty of free options out there that do all the things that they want people to pay, $60 a month for. Rather than, it's like it just the business model doesn't make any sense as far as it goes. And then like their ads are really bad. I don't know. Well, no, it's Adobe doing it. I don't know what their strategy is, because their customers already didn't like the subscription option out there. Like, people didn't like it. So people were already kind of upset by that, but they were kind of dealing with that. And then they started really pushing the AI stuff into their programs. And as part of that, one of the things they've also done is they've completely neglected their applications. So I think it was 3 or 4 years ago they launched Photoshop on the iPad. Like, supposed to be the thing to be on track for the full version of Photoshop eventually. So it doesn't have all the things that the desktop one has, but their intent was to rebuild Photoshop on the iPad and then use that rebuilt version on desktop eventually. That was what they were talking about at the time anyway. And since then, though, they haven't really fixed it. So when they released it, people kind of laughed at it because it's just missing so many things. It's not all that useful. And so it didn't get used all that much by people, just because it's missing important things that people do with Photoshop. And then they haven't really updated it. And then the other programs on the desktop have just been getting buggier and buggier and buggier. And the whole time they've just kind of relied on the fact that they were the quote-unquote industry standard. So, if you're going to get a job in design of any kind, whether it's concept art or graphic design or web or whatever, industrial design, everyone uses Photoshop. But the fact is, there's nothing. It's not, Photoshop isn't as a complicated program as, say, like Maya or Max or CAD or any of these like heavy-duty 3D programs. So it's not hard to move on to other things. So I know a lot of people have been designing in Canva lately, so they kind of moved away from Illustrator and Photoshop to use Canva. That's got a lot of AI stuff in it to automatically generate designs or whatever for people. So it has its own problems, but it's cheaper and it's easier to use. So like, why would you use use Photoshop, you've got Canva. Like why? So, just in terms of market utility, like if you just need it for some basic things, and you don't need Photoshop or Illustrator. If you're just making like a for sale banner for your distilled water company, delivery company for this week's sale, so why not use the cheaper option? And I think Adobe's gonna start figuring out something real quick. They're gonna be in some real trouble. I mean, they already are in trouble, so. But the other thing too is like, well, if they're making all these tools or these, they're updating all their software, they're no, that's what always happens to monopolies, right? That's the whole history of monopolies. As long as the market is open, there's no like government preventing you or law preventing you from entering the market. That's always what happens to monopolies: is they get too big and unwieldy, and then someone else comes in and undercuts their market. But the thing that's weird about Adobe is like their entire customer base are people that do design, and then they're putting out software that undercuts what their customers do, which is so weird. It doesn't make any sense at all. The only place where it makes sense is they believed it would increase perception of value to shareholders, therefore increasing their stock price. But the opposite has happened. Because, what do we need them for? So even just like at some, rational, dispassionate, practical level, it's like, what were they thinking? So I know, like even during like the robber baron era, one of the things that would happen is just like similar today, where these companies are like buying up other companies all the time. They did that too. So they, someone built like a metal processing factory or a oil processing factory or something like that, or an oil field back then. Then Vanderbilt or whoever would come in and try and buy it up. What started happening was there was actually incidents where people built kind of fake factories to sell. So they would have like the equipment there, but it wouldn't properly work, and they didn't actually make anything. But they would present it to the it would make it look as if it was going to be a potential competitor, and so they would sell it to these so-called robber barons. They would sell this broken down factory to them. That's why they kind of undercut their market cap. Eventually, but yeah, so it's kind of interesting. The watching the Adobe thing, like I almost never use, if I can avoid it. I rarely use Photoshop anymore. It's just really laggy. Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, because the big plan with the rubber bearings was basically you become the sole provider or something, and then you can jack up your prices. Except they've never been able to do that. Um, so it just never really works. Unless they can get some kind of special privilege status in the law, then they can do that. Like the Federal Reserve, right? It has a monopoly on printing money, even though it's a private organization. And we look at what that's done to the value of our money over time. The dollar's only lost 90% of its purchasing power since they started rolling on that process. So I forget which guy it was, industrialist. He was involved with like heavily with kerosene back in the day, but he was selling his stuff for such a low price that internationally that Germany passed some kind of law to lower the price of their own kerosene processing to help kind of protect their own production. I don't know how that worked, but that's kind of what they did. And so what this guy did is he went and bought all of their kerosene at a lower price. At that lower price, because it was the price was low enough, it was like below his production cost. And then he started selling it in other markets from them. Um, I think they were trying to sell in the U.S. or something like that, and he just bought up all of their product and then resold it because they had lowered the price so much, which I thought was pretty funny. He was also, I wish I could remember his name, but he was also the one who he was running a ferry up the river between Albany and New York City. And initially, he was charging people a certain amount, and then he kept lowering and lowering the price because what he would do is he would sell, lunch on the ferry, and it was technically illegal. He didn't have the proper licensing for it, but it was so popular they couldn't get rid of it. And then eventually, it was free to ride his ferry. You just would say, "Hey, we have the lunch menu." You didn't have to buy anything, but you could. It was the same guy. It was kind of those early industrial days. Yeah, so it's. Let's see, let's get the lines on there. Well, maybe I'll do the white first. There's a Raphael. I knew I had one around here. So, but yeah, it's an interesting situation with Adobe because they made themselves so vital, but also because they were just buying up everything. Like they own Substance, who does all the texturing stuff. But now you've got competition from Quixel and other places where they have additional texturing options for 3D stuff production. All right, let's get the borders on that one. That'll be number 15. Look, we got a spammer over on Kick. I haven't had one of those in a while. Alright. There we go. Alright. Good morning. I'll go ahead and delete that comment. So I guess it's further over than I thought it was. It's over here. Yeah, it's over here. There we go. That's better. Good morning. Maybe just a little taller. All right. Go. All right, let's get number 2 done. We've got a bunch of stuff to do today. Work. What do they expect you to be doing during the morning when you're at work? I'm sure I said something interesting and insightful after you left. Any random 40 hours or just the ones you pick? Alright. I see. You get to work from home, or is this like an office thing, or sometimes in a hybrid kind of situation? Oh, okay. Well, if you don't get too crazy sitting home alone, right? It's like I'm teaching my business class. A lot of students kind of think like freelance is the ideal because they'll be working from home all the time. But I like to point out from them that it can be inconsistent. A regular job can actually be inconsistent too. Look at all the firings at Microsoft recently. 9,000 people in the last year. But um, they don't realize is you spend a lot of time all by yourself. So if you're not one of those people that can be alone, you know, if you have a hard time with that, spending days all by yourself, then it's not an ideal situation for people like that, especially like easily depressed or have anxiety and things like that. But Not everybody can deal with that. They think they want it. They think that's what would be ideal, but humans are, generally speaking, pretty social creatures, and so it can be rough on them if they're not comfortable with that. Hey, Bosh, stop. Oh, yeah. That's where you get into house plants, right? Put those in the office. Yeah, speaking of shitty office life, right? um, yeah. All right, let's see. I need to get the. Let's see. This will be number 16. Said I'm going to do 100 of these, so I'm counting them off. Yeah, I might do more. I might even shift over to color once I finish this group of 100. Yeah. 250716. This is Fight Club. I should watch that movie again. It's been a while. You know, it's funny that movie. A lot of people look at men, especially. They look at that movie, and they see kind of Brad Pitt as having this kind of ideal physique for like fighting or something like that. But he really didn't get in shape for the movie. He just lost a lot of weight. He had like no body fat, so it was actually really unhealthy for him to do that. Um, but it made him look like he was, this because the muscle sitting on the surface without any of the fat made him look like a, like he was a killer, but really wasn't that big in the movie, and but it kind of accentuated, his facial features a lot, and then you could see the muscles and the abs popping and all that. Yeah. Um, but I think most girls didn't much like it either. Like I think men tend to look at Brad Pitt as like this ideal, good-looking guy, but I hear more girls complain about him than swoon over him, which is interesting. Um, so, but anyway, there's today's morning study. Working on these film studies, so that's like 16 of them so far, which is great. Filling up these pages. So, started with the thing, did some Blade Runner, do some Fight Club probably for the next few days. Try to focus on films I've actually seen. I did collect a bunch for other movies, but trying to focus on things I've seen. It's also like looking at some of these, I'm like, oh, I should go finally watch that movie. Like these are a bunch of Akira Kurosawa movies I should see. Some of them I even own. Like I got some screenshots out of 1917. I still haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but I should. It's like I did watch Andor finally. It was funny. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I watched it and then I watched Rogue One after that. And Rogue One really does look like a weak movie after watching Andor. Like all the great characters and storytelling that they built into it, and then you watch Rogue One, you're like, well, this isn't nearly as good. Oh yeah, but and then I started watching Skeleton Crew, and I'm like, wait a second, this is just Treasure Island in space. Which didn't Don Bluth already do that? With Treasure Planet. But like the robot's named SM-33 or SME. They've got John Silver in there and a pirate hat. It's a little on the nose as far as the pirate theme stuff goes. The ship, though, is a practical ship. They actually built it, and it's mechanized and lights up and everything. So I thought that was cool. They also did painted backgrounds, and there's a lot of animatronics in it, and puppets and things like that I think are great to see. But yeah, I'm going to call it there and move on. But thanks for coming in. We'll talk to everybody later.